Hello everyone. I have a bit of a side quest today. Since we've been talking about building a power supply for Naim preamps, I wanted to touch upon the weirdness and complexity of what a Naim preamp is in terms of inputs and outputs. They've always been a little bit odd, freak people out a bit, tend to be a little bit closed because of the way they do things. What we're looking at here is sort of a middle range Naim preamp. It's an NAC 102. I believe NAC is Naim audio control because you're controlling the input and the volume. NAC 102, and the reason this is a good example is that it takes not only the standard 24-volt supply, but it also has remote control circuitry, so it requires the NAPSC input as well. You'll notice I also have an NAPSC here. And we got a whole lot of different DIN connectors, and I just wanted to point them out. With preamp, of course, you have inputs for your audio, you have output to the power amp for your audio, and then you have to supply power. Naim audio preamps, for some reason, have always had power coming in from an external source. With the exception of a few like the NAC 332, they don't tend to have their own power supply on board. And so to deal with it, we have, of course, all of your inputs here, and then we have a couple of output sides. And let's take a look at the inputs first. You'll notice here we have a couple of very handy diagrams. This one with all 5 pins labeled, this one with just 3 of the pins labeled. Channel 1 and channel 2 on this side, also on this side. We have an additional channel 1, channel 2 on this side, and then a shared ground. All of them will use that one shared ground. The difference between these two is this one is for input only, something like a CD player. This one has input on the left side and also does output for something like a tape recorder, cassette recorder, reel-to-reel, whatever you happen to have. So that's the purpose of these 3 connectors here. Channel 1 is always left, channel 2 is right, and if you're having difficulty remembering that, 1 looks like an L, 2 kind of looks like an R. Or some people would say left is on the left is number 1, and number 2, in order from left to right, is number 2. However you want to remember that is fine. The other thing you'll notice, if you look at the outside pin to the other outside pin, it's straight across the middle. So this is actually called an 180-degree DIN connector. You can get these from Preamp, P-R-E-H-K-E-Y-T-E-C is the name of the company that makes Naim's standard plugs. And as I say, all of these are the same, and therefore input of sources only, output for cassette deck, but not output for a power amp. Because the output here, I should mention, is not controlled by the volume. This output is full level, because of course if you had a tape deck, you would control your input levels there. Now we have the power supply side and the signal output side. For signal output, let's just touch upon this initially. We have channel 1, channel 2, left and right, much like we have on the other side. Also here, channel 1, channel 2. What's the difference? Of course, here we have 4 pins, here we have 5 pins. The difference is, depends on the kind of external power supply that you have. Originally, Naim's power amps would take the signal from the preamp, so that's channels 1 and 2, plus the negative pin, and they would then supply back to the preamp a single 24-volt supply. And then Naim thought, you know what, let's let people have 2 24-volt supplies so we can have independent power supplies for different sections of the preamp. So at that point, they came up with the concept of the 5-pin DIN. You'll notice the configuration of these is not quite the same as this 5-pin. This is a 180-degree 5-pin. This, I believe, is 240 degrees, if I remember correctly. And this probably, I'm going to say 216 is my best guess, but maybe 206. I can't recall off the top of my head. But it's a standard Pre connector, so that you're not going to find 2 of them where one is 216 and one is 206. It's one or the other. It's just the 4-pin connector. Now, which one do you use? Well, that's a good question. If you don't have a separate power supply, and in this case, this is a flat cap power supply. This is Naim's entry level in their olive range. If you don't have one of these external power supplies, then you have to get power directly from the power amp, in which case you will be using the 4-pin plug because the power amps only supply a single 24-volt power. Now, the interesting thing there is, as you get higher in Naim's power amp range, the 250, the 135, they do not have a power supply for the preamp because Naim thought, if the person is this crazy to spend that much money on the 250 or a pair of 135s, then they probably spend some money on an actual dedicated power supply for the preamp. So we're not going to bother putting the preamp supply in their power amps. So that's why you use the 4-pin one for everything up to, in the olive range, it was the 180 had the power supply, and then everything above that did not. So when you hook up the power amp to this, as I say, 24 volts coming in, that's a fairly quiet 24 volts coming in, so it doesn't really have much of an impact on the audio circuitry going back, so they felt that was good enough to have them all come on the single line. Now, if you are using an external supply like this, you'll notice we have here the same kind of connector there for the 5-volt supply, or sorry, for the 5-pin supply. So when you're hooking up the preamp to this thing, you use a cable from this 5-pin supply down to this 5-pin supply, and then you have outputs. And why in the world do they have this many? Well, you could actually want to triamp your speakers. So these are all the outputs. And in this situation, what ends up happening is not only is the power supply, you're getting two 24-volt supplies coming from here up to this point, and then the signal is going back from here into this connection, and then it comes from this point out to the power amp. So for some bizarre reason, Naim is taking the signal through one cable into the preamp power supply and then through another cable to get to the power amp. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and most people who don't mind breaking the mold will actually use this connector for the preamp power supply for positive and shared negative, and then they will use this connection for the power, or sorry, for the audio out, the signal out, and then in that case they will not have a positive connection when they're sending it directly to the power amp. That just won't be connected in the cable at all. It'll just be the 3 wires. So that is the essence of it. Now, there are a few twists and turns I just want to cover. The NAPSC, I believe it stands for Naim Audio Power Supply for Control, probably, I'm guessing. And that is, instead of being a 24 volt like these are, this is actually an 18 volt, and it comes from this external device. If you have a NAC 102 like this is, or an NAC 82 or the 282, then they have a connection for the NAPSC, and you actually will have an NAPSC. For the 102, it's optional, but for the 82, it comes with the preamp. In the case of the 52, it also has one of these connectors, but the curious thing is that the output on the super cap, which is what you have to have for 52, the output for the super cap actually has it has a different DIN connector to NAPSC connector. No idea why. Now, if we look at this little gap here, what in the world is it for? Well, it says link. And the point of this is the 102, as I mentioned, can optionally have the NAPSC. So in the case that it doesn't, you won't have anything connected here, but it still has control circuitry that needs power. So with the 102, you can actually just vampirically take power from this thing over to this plug. So what ends up happening is one of these connectors on this guy, I can't remember which one, from the positive here, will be connected eventually over to here. And the negative is also connected over to here. And then the output from the other pin is down to here, and they just short across. So you end up getting the power supply coming in from this side, powering the NAPSC, and there's regulators. There's a regulator inside to take it from 24 volts down to 18. So here you have this wonderful, fantastic, awesome external power supply, and then you're just siphoning off some of the power to feed the digital control circuitry. They say digital control circuitry. It's really just there is a little some kind of a processing chip to do volume control and such things, and circuit changing. So they call it digital, but not digital like digital audio, digital because there's logic to it. So this, because this thing is not going to be using that power from the preamp supply, you do not put the link plug in. One other twist is for users of the 82. The 82 can be supplied from an external power amp with a 4-pin plug just like this. It can also be supplied with a 5-pin or a second 5-pin connector. So there are a couple of different link plugs that you tend to have on an 82, depending upon whether you have 0, 1, or 2 external power supplies. And of course, that's what the MadCap is. The MadCap provides, that I'm building, check elsewhere in my channel for that. I'll probably put a link for it below. Supplies 3 independent sets of supplies. It has 2 independent 24-volt supplies for a plug like this, another 2 for another plug like this on the 82 or 282, and then a separate connection for this. And in my case, I use this aviator type 2-pin plug on both ends, both the end connecting to the 82 as well as to the MadCap itself. So there you go. Hopefully that clarifies a few things. As you can see, very convoluted, very complicated, and each one of the preamps has got a few quirks as far as hooking them up, but I just wanted to go through the fundamentals of how these things get signal in, signal out, and power supply. Thanks very much. Have yourself a great day.